Hey guys, what's up? It is week 421. Have a handful of reviews for you, so let's just dive right in. The first one is from 1974, and this is the Rapacious Jailbreaker from Radiance Films. This is by a director who they mentioned is actually a household name kind of in Japan at the time. They said he's one of the big three Toei kind of directors from his period, along with Keiji Fukasaku, but he doesn't get much recognition here. So this is one of the first releases I think we've had stateside on Blu-ray, and his name is, I want to make sure I say it right, Sadao Nakajima. And this is, I think, my first experience with him, too. This does have the same star from what was the film that Radiance put out, Hiraku Proxy War, which is an excellent film. Matsukata, who's an excellent actor. So this is a wild movie, partially based on a true story about a Japanese prisoner who just refuses to be held captive, who just kind of is one of these characters that refuses to fall in line, realizes that there's no way he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life, and at that point it's a breaking point. So in the very beginning we have this kind of drug deal robbery kind of gone wrong, where our lead character here murders a guy that you could see in the criminal world kind of justified, but he also kills his girlfriend. He is sentenced to 20 years. Every time he commits a crime, we see the additional add-on, and then we see the total add-on to his time in prison. And at first you think he might serve his time to a certain extent, but shortly after he breaks out and he becomes a very troublesome prisoner for a lot of the guards and the warden and all these kind of things like that. He actually seeks out other prisoners throughout the film to help him escape. And this is, they said it's loosely based on a couple different prisoners, one who escaped, I think, up to 4 times. And every time he commits one of these acts of violence or anything like that, they add more prison time. And he becomes more and more unhinged throughout the movie. He's obviously getting older, but the way they present him is just really uglier and more violent and more animalistic. And every time he's put back in the prison, he just loses more and more of his soul. It's really well made. It's really well directed. But I think that the strong point in this movie, is the structure. I think is really cool, but I also think that the lead performance here is a really strong one, and without his performance behind the film, it just would be significantly weaker. So the ending, or some of the prison escapes, I will say, they have almost like these kind of vignette kind of story endings, how he's caught and stuff, and that's kind of enjoyable. And there are times of the film where he's not in prison, where he's out for long stretches of times, and everything about this guy, he's just an animal. That's the only way to explain it. And this performer, the way he acted in Proxy War is he would kind of imitate kind of the real life person that he was doing in that film too. So it's like he does these kind of like semi-biopics of playing a character, and he does this really well. I can imagine the research was pretty in depth on his end. So the prison itself, this is also like a period piece. It has a lot of unique kind of characters. This isn't the first Japanese prison film. There's the Arachi prison films, which, Arabashi? There's a bunch of those. The first one directed by Taro Ishii. So it kind of has some vein to that, although I would kind of suggest it's his own deal. There's a couple wild scenes in here where there's just kind of like a man-on-man sex scene in kind of the early bits, but it's not portrayed in your typical kind of fashion of like this violent jailhouse rape or like a loving story. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle in this weird kind of presentation of it. The characters in the film are interesting. But he really stands out. There's another character in here, the actor who pops up in all these Japanese movies, who's kind of like a pit boss, kind of an older, kind of more respected character, and he has a little tiny role in it. I would like to see more from him. But again, I just can't really sell this movie any more than I have with just basically mentioning how good the performance is. All the technical aspects are great too. The action is filmed really well. It's incredibly violent for the time. 74, I mean, Japan was violent, but the murders are violent. The way that everything is portrayed is violent and very matter of fact. So I would really recommend the Rapacious Jailbreaker. If you love prison movies, if you love escape movies, if you love high intensity, kind of like adrenaline and that kind of aspect, there's tons of character actors in here as well. And I think the action's shot pretty well. There is some features on here which I enjoyed. Feature-length audio commentary by Nathan Stewart. Pretty decent, solid kind of thing there. And then we have a limited edition booklet featuring new writings by Earl Jackson, archival review. He definitely talks a little bit about how this was based on a real character, 2 different kind of prisoners. He talks about how he loses his kind of like human kind of deal where he's so easily just like can no longer be captive. He goes, it's not all kind of the background of the characters and actors and the people who made the movie, that's in there, but it's more so kind of like looking at the character itself and explaining a lot of things like that. So a decent commentary. I enjoyed it. Looks great, sounds great. Great film from Radiance Films, and I'd like to see more from this director. Okay, next up we have one from the MVD Marquee Collection. This is also Smodcastle Cinema, which is, Smodcast was Kevin Smith's kind of podcast deal. I don't know if he still has it here. And this is directed by Vincent Pereira, who, this is his first and only feature-length film, unfortunately, here. But originally made in 1995, I think completed in 97, had a DVD from Synapse Films in the early 2000s, and then, of course, we have this one being released recently. He kind of re-edited it and did some things and fixed it up as much as he could. Now, Vincent Pereira is a huge movie fan, a huge cinephile, and throughout like the special features and things like that and introductions, he actually was the guy who got Kevin Smith in the loving movies. His friend that made him fall in love with movies and things like that. So he's in a couple of Kevin Smith's early films and stuff. Like I think he in Clerks as a goalie, one of the movies I can't remember. But this movie's a solid film. It's a perfect first film, shot on film. Has a gritty, raw feeling, and it follows high schoolers, kind of that teenage angst idea. And if you're too far away from high school, you always get that kind of awkward feeling, right, where it's like, it feels like almost it has to be a parody like Heathers or something, or Massacre at Central High. Not parody, but satire, or making statements about it, which work well, I think, especially in stuff like Heathers. But if you're close to it, it can come across as really immature and angsty and just cringy at times, if that makes any sense. I think this one has the perfect amount of kind of what you're looking for in these kind of characters. I think they're well developed. I think they're fully realized, if that makes sense, and they feel true in a lot of ways. So we kind of have this new character, that new guy that moves into a small town in high school. He's kind of, I guess, nerdy to a certain extent. Not really, just awkward teen, as we all were probably. And his father had recently died, so they had to downgrade and kind of move to this area. And right away, there's a bully that starts messing with him. He does stand up for himself, but there's another guy in town who's kind of an outcast, who people seem to be a little afraid of. He ends up fighting the bully in kind of a violent little scene here. And they form a kind of shaky friendship where eventually this guy who fought the bully is very guarded. He lets his guard down and they become friends, but it becomes more than that. They start to kind of talk a lot, and you see what's deep inside of this guy is really disturbed. Probably some mental illness, some unfortunate stuff passed on from, his family lineage, because his father has a dark history. So all that kind of stuff comes out and you learn who he is, and he's struggling with his demons while his friend's trying to steer him in the right path. And that's kind of the drama in here. There's moments where he kind of just has these long, like, spiels and soliloquizing about the horrors of human nature, and at a young age there's a lot of angst and like anger towards these things, because I guess you don't understand him, but also he feels a little bit ahead of his time in terms of intelligence, right? That kind of idea and all these things like that. And I found that the performances are they're raw and they're from two young actors, earlier actors, but I think they serve the movie pretty well. I think they're good, and I think that the way the violence is shot, the way they use the violence, I think the violence is raw and it hits pretty hard. I think it's kind of a disturbing film. I think the last lines are haunting. I think it's just a haunting kind of look on a low budget, kind of gritty. Feels good, man. It feels good, right? If that makes sense. Not good, but there was a lot of independent movies being made, and I feel like this fits in there. And this is going to sound really weird because it's not exactly like this. It's not in that kind of vein, but in a little bit, it feels like the kind of raw energy of like early Van Beber. And I know it's weird, but a lot of these kind of, or it's like early Van Beber meets kind of Sam Raimi's early camp. Not Sam Raimi himself, but like the guys who did Thou Shalt Not Kill, Josh Becker and stuff like that. It has that kind of raw, independent quality about it that I really do love. And you can tell there's a lot of creativity in here. There's a lot of caring, and it's not the perfect film, obviously. No first film should be, but I think it's pretty damn good for a first film. I would like to see the director do a lot more. Fortunately, I don't think he ever directed another film, but that's just kind of one of these depressing aspects about the whole thing, right? Brand new 2K restoration of the 3K scan of the original camera negative and first generation print elements presented in 1080p. Its director's intended 1:5:1 aspect ratio, audio DTS HD 5.1 surround, optional subtitles. New introduction by writer and director Vincent Pereira. Archival commentary, director Vincent Pereira, and cast and crew members. 2001 version of Better Place President Standard Def. Vintage introductions by executive producer Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier. These are ridiculous and funny. Vintage goof commentary on 2001 version with director Vincent Pereira and cast. Deleted scenes with optional commentary, outtakes, and bloopers. A Better Place 2025 trailer. Commentaries, the new one's pretty interesting. They're both pretty. I listened to the new one and I enjoyed that. A lot of good information on it about what scenes to cut, what scenes to add back in, arguments amongst the actors and how they decided to do it, and regrets, all that kind of stuff. But an interesting, cool movie. If you like independent movies and they're raw and they kind of have emotion and kind of a little bit of disturbing subject matter, then I'd recommend A Better Place. I enjoyed it. Very 90s in a good way. The good 90s. The 90s I enjoy. 90s is like a hit and miss for me, but when I enjoy it, I really dig it because I grew up in that time and it has a certain nostalgia and weird comfort for me, independent movies from the 90s. All right, let's hop into the next disc of the Tear in the Fog, the creamy collection here, the Crimmy. And last week we covered The Curse of the Yellow Snake and what was the other one? The Strangler of Blackmore Castle. This week we're going to hop into the first one here, and this is going to be The Mad Executioners. So, yeah, this one was a lot of fun. I kind of enjoyed it. So what we have here is kind of two cases simultaneously going on for Scotland Yard. Two important cases here. It's always funny that the German movies are always like, it's Scotland Yard, right? Gotta have that. But so we have a kind of a case of a missing girl going around, these missing girls and stuff like that. Serious case where these girls are ending up dead, decapitated, I believe, if that's the case. And another one where these kind of guilty criminals that kind of got to walk free are being, abducted and they're being murdered. And it's kind of done by this hooded cult kind of group where you don't really know who's in it. And we're kind of mostly following around a lot of the kind of police officers as they try to detect who it is. And we start to learn backstories on them and why certain characters do not want to do this case or they want to switch the cases and things like that. And I couldn't help but think this reminds me a lot of the Dirty Harry movie Magnum Force. Magnum Force is the one with the crooked cops, right? And that one's a lot of fun, the Clint Eastwood movie. So it's kind of in that vein, right? Where we have this vigilante group that's kind of led in like this cult kind of aspect. And we have a couple Scotland Yard detectives trying to figure it out here. There's some familiar faces that pop up in here. A lot of characters that pop up in here that are almost just kind of like red herrings, where you're like, oh, that guy, is that Dr. Mabuza? He should be villain in here. He played Dr. Mabuza a couple times and things like that. I think even Werner Peters pops up in this one too. It's been a while. This is like one of the first movies I watched this week, but overall I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the storyline. There's a couple throwaway characters that are rather silly, but the nice little twist is kind of obvious to a certain extent. I think you'll kind of pick up on it, but I did enjoy this one. I think the commentary was also pretty interesting. On these, the ones that Eureka's been doing from the CCC, they always have these really strong commentaries on there with a lot of information. Where are we at here? The new audio commentaries, The Mad Executioners, is Kevin Loynes and Jonathan Rigby, filled with information, talks a lot about the characters. But yeah, good overall movie here, The Mad Executioners. Don't have too much to say about it, but it's I don't know where I'd rank it. I think the next one's my favorite in the set by Country Mile, but I think this one's probably my second. The next one here in Terror in the Fog is The Phantom of Soho. So this one's kind of odd because it is a standard definition, a print of it. It's the only standard definition, and they consider it a bonus movie. But it would be a crime not to include this one. This is probably this is my favorite Crimmy that I think I've seen. Just a great little mystery story here. So yeah, it kind of starts off in your typical fashion with a murder with these kind of crazy gloves on because the character's throwing knives, so they have like knife throwing gloves on. So it's kind of where the character is kind of going here. Strangles, I think, or kills this old man that leaves this kind of rich man that leaves like kind of this club where he frequents to see beautiful ladies and all those kind of things. He gets killed in the street. So they immediately start to investigate, kind of figuring out why he died, talk to all the people in the club, and we kind of have the owner of the club is this kind of lady who's crippled in the wheelchair behind the scenes, kind of with this nice little like see-through mirror where they can see out. Werner Peters is her own private doctor, but he's obviously up to no good. Everybody in here's up to no good. So they start to investigate the entire thing. At the same time, there is a writer who's kind of involved with in this aspect with like one of the detectives, and she is a crime writer. So we have that kind of like meta element in here, which is cool. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Tenebrae, right? Where you have an actual crime writer getting involved with the kind of discovering this crimes and everything like that. And it kind of even feels a little bit like that. You can see where, Dario probably was influenced by these pulp novels and all this kind of stuff like that they're written out of. and whatnot, and just a history of film. But so they start to look into it. More and more people start to end up dead as they discover that all these characters are possibly linked together by something. And it's in your kind of vein of you always have these murder mysteries where it's like, are these people being killed for money or for some sort of revenge or some sort of mental character who's kind of mental illness deal. But regardless, I like the little meta aspects. I like the character aspects. I like the mystery of it all. I felt this mystery was just much more intriguing with all the kind of characters coming in and figuring out who they are and why they are all interconnected and stuff like that. I thought this was a fantastic movie, and it opens up with a really great song. This movie you have to watch in German, because right in the beginning they have a song that's not really in the American version if you kind of flip through it, and it has this like Soho. You read the subtitles. It says Monsters in Soho, Phantom of Soho, and it's just a really kind of fun little quirky, almost like, I don't want to say jazz, but definitely some kind of like club music that you would listen to about the whole kind of movie and the murders in Soho. Just a really great movie, really enjoyable, very good mystery. As far as the special features are concerned on here, we do have a commentary, and it's by Kim Newman and Barry Forshaw. Enjoy that one for sure. Good commentary, good amount of information about the actors in there, and they these movies aren't just like all like when they do the commentaries. It's not chock full. It is chock full of information, but it's not 100% just this actor's in this and this person did this and this history. They do talk a little bit about the movie and break it down a little bit, and just say, well, this is funny, this and stuff like that. Kim Newman is always really good with jokes here and there, and there's a couple in here too. But I wouldn't really call it necessarily at the movie's expense in a mean-spirited way. They obviously are quite big fans of the movie, but good disc on here. Really enjoyed this one. Phantom of Soho, great stuff. Mad Executioners is good as well. But it's pretty good set so far. I like 3 out of the 4, so that's a winner for me. Curse of the Yellow Snake, I really don't care for. I think it's dated in kind of a crummy way, but and I'm not like offended by it. It's just kind of a snooze. It's kind of a slog to get through, while the other ones are just much more fast-paced and entertaining and more modern, but makes a little bit more sense when the books were written and when they were adapted, or if they were even from books at the time. But yeah, good stuff. Phantom of Soho. Okay, so Vinegar Syndrome recently put this bad boy out in 4K, and I had to give it a spin. It's been years since I watched Murder Rock. 1984, Lucio Fulci, 4K here. Can't show the nipples, unfortunately. YouTube doesn't like nipples. Even though on Facebook and sites like that, they'll sell you like blow-up dolls in your advertisements and all sorts of crazy shit. People will post about it, and then show a nipple, you're done. So you got a little booklet in here, got another slip cover within there. So Murder Rock, this is kind of a weird film for Lucio Fulci. But yeah, so after the kind of pushing back on New York Ripper, he kind of cut back a little bit on the gore. Conquest had it in '83, but this one's a little bit less gory than a lot of the other ones, and it's getting into that kind of element where we have a lot of the flash dance popularity, music, kind of jazzercise dancing kind of deal. So it's incredibly '80s, extremely '80s. Am I thinking, is it Fulci's most '80s movie? I would say so. And this predates stuff like Nothing Underneath. I do see similarities to that, but we do have like a group of dancers, so it's in line with something like Blood and Black Lace, where we have the fashion models, or even it all feels that kind of element here, where you have these like uptight schoolgirls competing and dancers competing, this group of dancers. So we have is a school that is being taught these like incredible dance moves, and they're all going to move up in competition, and only 3 of them can be selected. So somebody starts murdering them. They're picking them off. They're taking like a hairpin and stabbing them in their heart. So it's not incredibly gratuitous like many of the other Fulci movies. It is incredibly sleazy in comparison. There's a lot of nudity. It has a crazy kind of cast here. Some Fulci regulars come back, like Olga I can't say her name, Carlatos, who's in Zombie. That's where I know her from. Of course, the infamous Splinter in the eye scene. She's in here. Then who else do we have? We have the guy from the perverted kind of doctor from Manhattan from New York Ripper coming back. He's also in Manhattan Baby, New Gladiators. He plays Lieutenant here. A really good role, Lieutenant Borges. We also have Al Cliver for a tiny role, and then we have some like kind of first time people working with Fulci that I thought was very interesting. Claudio Casanelli, who's usually in the Sergio Martino movies. We had Jaretta from Demons, of course, and Robo War, and a slew of other movies as well. Rats Knights of Terror, works with Bruno Mattei quite a bit. And we have Christian Bolomero, who is in House on the Edge of the Park, which is one of my personal favorites. He's also in Tenebrae, Speak of the Devil. So like we have this whole kind of mixture of different actors and things working together, and it was kind of just a nice little thing here. Keith Emerson does the music from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who worked on Inferno, of course. So we have that element here. The music is very 80s, very silly, very catchy, very lyrically silly and goofy. And I think if you like 80s movies, movies, you like horror movies, you like all this kind of stuff, I think you'll really dig this. Now, the first time I saw Murder Rock, I probably was a little disappointed. You know, you're so used to seeing that hardcore Fulci gore. Now it's been 15 years since I watched it, so seeing the 4K, I popped it in. I was like, this is a lot of fun. It does have that element. I know a lot of people see this more often than I do in a lot of the Italian movies, unintentional humor, and I think Murder Rock is definitely guilty of it, but I think it's less that it's Italian or this. It's more so just a product of its dated time, that 80s kind of cheesy factor in there, and having all these people have these dance moves and these flashes and things like that. But the people are picked off. We learn that they're all sleeping together. They have all intermingling, complicated relationships. Ray Lovelock is also in here from, of course, Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man, and the wonderful Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, Oasis of Fear. He's in a million movies. Ray Lovelock, good actor. And he plays this kind of red herring. In fact, would it be wrong of me to say that every character in this movie is a red herring? So much so that they kind of push these characters as obvious killers, but they're so obvious they can't be obvious, which is very common in giallo, right? I remember the first times I was ever watching any Italian movies, I was like, why does everybody keep looking at the camera suspiciously? I was so confused as a young person. It's like, down and zooms in. Now I've grown like so used to it that I don't even notice that kind of extra step in the storytelling. But overall, I think this is a fun one, incredibly fun. It's not Fulci's best movie. It's not nearly as worse. I put it in second tier Fulci, which is still damn great to me. I mean, it's got a nice budget. It's got a solid cast. It's got a lot of kills. It's got a lot of sleaze. It's got a lot of sex. And it's, like Terry Harworth said in the commentary, this is the single commentary he has by himself on here. I think there's an overseas release that has Nathaniel Thompson, Troy Howarth, and Ercolani together on it. But what he says here in the commentary is this theme that he brought up when he talked about New York Ripper on the show, too. He's like, if you're not the best, then you're worthless. And that's definitely in there too, right? You got to be top of the heap or you might as well be in the garbage bin or the garbage heap. You know what I mean? If you're not top of it, you might as well just be buried under it forever. And he kind of mentions that in Murder Rock too. That's definitely that competition where everybody's at each other's throats, which makes for, you know, a great movie for a bitter director. As far as the features are concerned, and I don't mean he's constantly bitter, he's a very complex character, as there's a million features on every disc that talk about how complex he is. Long live Fulci, Fulci lives. We have the 4K, of course, 93-minute version with Dolby Vision HDR and newly restored 35 camera negative, following sound options, original English language stereo soundtrack, Italian language dub with newly translated English subtitles, and commentary of film historian Troy Howarth. I think that's from the original Scorpion release, because he mentions thank you to Walt, which I do have as well. Remember, people, a lot of the movies were filmed without sound, so whatever they're dubbed over, you know, whatever actor speaks his native language on the set, and then they sometimes get lucky enough to dub it over. So when people are like, I only watch my Italian movies in Italian, it's like, you're doing it wrong. Do whatever you want, but it doesn't make a damn difference unless, especially if it has a bunch of American actors who dub their own voice, you probably should watch it in English. And then we have, of course, just the Blu-ray that has features on there, the movie as well. And then we have Bullet and Ballet, an interview with Robert Gilgoroff. What is that? Gilgoroff, Hellfant Protege, or what is that? Prodigy. Interview with actress Sylvia Colentina, Lucio's pet. An interview with Al Cliver. Makes always a joke about he was basically always being treated like shit by Lucio. Lightning Murder, an interview... Lightning Murder. Is that Lightning? Or it's Lighting Murder? Lightning Murder, an interview with cinematographer Giuseppe Pinori. I'm an idiot. Lightning Murder. A Pen in the Dark. An audio interview with co-writer Gina Franco. Clarici. I'm getting old. Augusto's Empire. An interview with film historian Eugenio Ercolani. That's interesting. That one's in English for people. The Murder Instigator interviews with producer Augusto Caminito and film historian Ercolani, of course. And then Murder Prague, interview with music historian DeSantis. And A Pin in the Heart, interview with makeup FX artist Franco Castagnini. I'm always terrible with these, and it gets worse. These names are not the most familiar names in Italy for me. Child's Play, an interview with actress Sylvia Coltina. In an audio interview with Fulci, interview with actress Geretta. That's great. She's funny, talks a lot about Fulci, talks a lot about her career, and she talks overall about just the experiences and all that kind of stuff like that. And I love Geretta. Seems like a genuinely amazing and sweet person, and she is a good nature about all these kind of crazy movies she was in. But Murder Rock looks great too, sounds great, and you'll want this with the nice sound and the nice picture. It's a very cool visual looking movie in New York too. I mean, Fulci did a bunch of the movies in New York, like of course New York Ripper, Zombie has scenes in New York, and Manhattan Baby in New York. York. I know it's in the city. It's got to be New York. But I love those Italian movies in New York, especially Fulci ones. Okay, next up, I decided to pop this in from 88 Films, import. I was just like, you know what? I want to watch something I haven't seen. Wanted to watch a Shaw Brothers old horror film. So, 1976, we have The Oily Maniac starring Danny Lee. That's right, the Danny Lee as the titular character, the Oily Maniac. Not to be confused with the Incredible Melting Man or the Greasy Strangler. He's his own entity. He's the Oily Maniac. So, yeah, this movie in the very beginning has this weird kind of like opening where it says this movie is based off Malaysian kind of folk tale. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And they kind of talk about it just in brief. And there's a nice special feature on here by Callum Waddell that talks about it a little bit more. And he talks about it's originally being made, The Oily Man, in the 50s, 58, about a character who has to come back and rape like 100 women or 30 women every month to keep his... It's weird. It sounds bonkers. It looked like there was a sequel possibly to that in 59. So just a weird history of this. This is technically a remake, The Oily Maniac. So it's 1976, and, you know, obviously Jaws was very successful, so they kind of lifted their theme music. They kind of changed it around a little bit, and it's basically the Jaws theme music. It's absolutely fucking hilarious. So, because when the Oily Maniac moves around, he'll turn to liquid, like kind of like this, like Hydro Man or somebody like that, right? Or I mean, like the Sandman could turn to a cloud, like a, you know, very superhero kind of style thing, and he'll move to turn to liquid and be like, and you, it's fucking ridiculous. So what we have here is Danny Lee is crippled from polio, unfortunately. At the very beginning, we have this kind of shisty deal with these kind of villains that have somehow got a good contract, and they're kind of holding it over these people's head. They're going to take this factory or whatever, this kind of deal, coconut garden oil grove or some shit like that. And there's a big fight that breaks out, and the uncle of this woman comes out, one of our main characters, and he ends up accidentally killing somebody defending them. He ends up going to prison, and before he goes in, he tells Danny Lee, listen, I know of this ancient curse. It's on my back. So he pulls his back out, and Danny Lee writes down the curse and stuff like that. And he's like, you must never use this for your own self-gain. You must use it to protect people, become kind of this protector, and do the right thing as the Oily Maniac. So he ends up doing it when shit gets crazy, because these villains, these asshole guys, are going around, and they're planning on raping his daughter and everything like that, and taking the land. They're just overall pieces of shit. Also, his boss that Danny Lee works for is tied into this. He's like this lawyer. He's a lawyer that he works for in the firm. And there's all this sorts of crooked and pieces of shit kind of people. And we have these little side, like, kind of stories that go places. And the Oily Maniac's going to come in and, you know, basically clean house and kill bad people that he sees fit. Or the curse seems fit. So, that's not really a curse, but you guys, a curse on them. So what happens is he kind of digs a hole and he becomes this maniac. And every time he needs to become the Oily Maniac, he just needs to get drenched in oil. So there's times he's like running over to a petrol station to spraying himself with gasoline and oil, or jumping in a vat of oil. It's absolutely fucking hilarious. And when he turns into the Oily Maniac, he kind of looks, I don't know how to explain this, he looks kind of like the thing from Class of Nukem High at the end that's like on the ground, but he also looks kind of like a walking turd, maybe like the shit demon from Dogma, but kind of really cheap, or the smog monster from Godzilla. So he's just this guy in this big suit with like his kind of heart beating, and he's just like, it looks like a giant kind of angry turd running around killing people. It's really entertaining. In this movie, it's tons of rape, which makes sense when you heard that Callum Waddell said about the original movie being focused on the kind of rape issue in the storyline. So you're like, of course, it's also a Hong Kong movie, which is kind of very standard, especially for anything the 70s and 80s and 90s, really, let's be honest. But so essentially, he breaks up a rape early of that girl and kills somebody, and this is the Oily Maniac. It's pasted all over the newspaper, and other bad people start getting killed too, including a guy who is basically forcing women into prostitution, and somebody tries to even blackmail the poor Oily Maniac, but he's not going to have it, and at points he turns into like an action hero, killing a bunch of people. It's going to end, you know, in this kind of climactic moment where you realize some of the people that some people thought were good are not good, and kind of broken hearts will be involved as well. The Oily Maniac is fucking nonsense. It's insane. It's vastly entertaining. It's very breakneck speed. I would really recommend it. That the idea that Danny Lee is the Oily Maniac is fucking even better. As far as the special features, we only got the one, but it's a good one, and it's just essentially, where is it here? Slippery Story, an interview with academic and author Callum Waddell. Good stuff in the Forgetting Superhero Cinema limited edition booklet notes by Callum Waddell. But I really enjoyed this one. It's sleazy, it's trashy, it's everything you would want in a movie called The Oily Maniac. Okay, the next one here, I'm going to be relatively brief with, and this is The Ugly Stepsister from 2025, and this is what, like a Swedish, Polish, Denmark, it's like a 4 kind of co-production kind of deal, and this is kind of a period piece, of course, take on, the Cinderella story, but by a different perspective, right, which is really kind of cool and unique. So what we have here is this kind of young girl, and we're following the ugly stepsister, right, the villain of the story of Cinderella, and her mother is marrying this older gentleman because they think that they have money, her and her her sister as well. They think that he has money. We have, of course, the beautiful daughter of this man as well. And in an awkward dinner, which kind of puts our lead character in almost this outcasted position in the beginning, and just it's so awkward and uncomfortable, he ends up having a heart attack and dying. Soon they realize that neither family has money, and this makes the pretty daughter incredibly upset at the whole situation already, but she kind of lashes out against the ugly stepdaughter. At first she wasn't so negative towards him, but everything comes down to finally every woman in the area wants to kind of win over the prince because they know that they will be financially secure for life, so they do that. But our ugly stepsister isn't quite pretty enough to catch anybody, so they start to do these kind of primitive cosmetic things to her, and that's kind of where the horror starts, the body horror starts, and it gets completely ridiculous. We start to have these mental decays, and basically my review for this was it's a story of 2 worms, and that's the best way I can explain it, maybe a good worm and a bad worm. But as it progresses, our character becomes more and more unhinged. It's a sexual movie, they don't shy away from that kind of aspect. But it's definitely by the end of it, it just turns into a real life horror fairy tale. Overall, I really liked it. I really recommend it. I think it's one of the better films of the year. I think it's beautifully shot. I think it's top-notch filmmaking. I think it's incredibly well acted. I think it's pretty gross and disturbing all at the same time, and I really dug that stuff. So I'd really recommend Ugly Stepsister. It's on Shudder. One of the better ones of the year so far, hands down. Top 2, 3, no doubt. Okay, let's get into those 1982 movies. This is going to be super quick and super awkward, and each movie's probably going to get 30 seconds. And you're saying, why 30 seconds? It's because they're all shorts. I did a huge bunch of shorts from 1982, and I'm going to have to, I like to just do them all in a rundown, but it's so many of them, probably a 10 shorts, so it's going to kind of be breaking away back and forth. The first one is Larry Fessenden's short film version of Habit. Now, some people listed it as 81, but I've seen it listed more as 82. Now, this is like a 15, 16-minute version of Habit that was later made into a feature-length movie in the 90s. Larry Fessenden is really pretty much a fairly prolific filmmaker, made a lot of low-budget movies, Glass Eye Pictures. He actually produces a lot of stuff as well, and he became kind of a really fun character actor that's in a slew of movies. So, this movie here is relatively simple, 16 millimeter. I think it's 16, very cheap. And we kind of have this kind of alcoholic kind of guy who had picked up this girl from a party, and they started dating. And she's been feeding on him, and he kind of is this big confession to his friend and everything until we have this kind of crazy downbeat ending. It's fine. It's very Larry Fessenden, if that makes sense. And some of his movies I really enjoy, some I really don't like. And they always kind of come across, and this is going to be weird, like something like his Frankenstein story I just felt was just like very dated and felt very mentally immature for like how smart the guy is. It's just weird. It's like it felt. But then something like Beneath I remember enjoying, or something along the lines of The Last Winter, like felt like intelligent and complex and stuff. So it's just certain vague stuff. I love him as an actor. I think he's fucking amazing. I think he's a great actor. I think he's a great producer. But it's just interesting to see Larry Fessenden make a short in 1982 that early on, right? It's and he's in this, and he's pretty good too. Okay, the next one is The Boogeyman, and this is, I think, the first Stephen King Dollar Baby from 1982. I don't think there was a Dollar Baby before this. I think the next one was probably Girl in the Room, which is... These two were both released together on a Night Shift Collection VHS tape that I had as a kid. I was always familiar with The Boogeyman. The Boogeyman scared the shit out of me as a kid. It haunted me. And this is just a story from Night Shift. It's a relatively short story about kind of psychologically damaged man who's talking about his children being killed to a psychiatrist, and we kind of have the flashback story. I don't remember how the exact whole story folds out, if he's crazy or not, and he did it or stuff like that. But this one just leaves it kind of in this really dark, demented area where this guy's just desperately like telling the story and screaming about how his kids were murdered by the Boogeyman, the closet monster. And there's some good lines in here, the good desperation from our lead performance here. And it's just dark and twisted, and I like the music. He's like, Wolfman, Dracula, the Mummy, what if they were real? What if that whole big speech he gives is good. And I think this is actually one of my more favorite shorts from the year because I think I'm connected to it on a very nostalgic kind of way, and it still gave me a little uneasy feeling even after all these years. So the Boogeyman, the first Stephen King dollar baby. So it's kind of an interesting idea here, right? We're having those Stephen King dollar babies, and Stephen King was already making movies, or his movies were being adapted from his books. Carrie was 76, and that will be the next one, The Shining, 1980. And then do we have any in 81? I know 83 is a big year coming up. We have Cujo and Dead Zone and Kristine all in the same year. And then after that, Stephen King pretty much owned the fucking 80s. Okay, relatively quick with this one. It's this Malice in Wonderland. Yeah, sounds exactly what you think. Incredibly trippy, incredibly weird, incredibly short, very sexual, that trippy kind of thing that you think, oh, let's just do an acid scene, an acid flashback. This is what you're thinking, Malice in Wonderland. Yeah, it could not do great if you had a bad trip or something like that, but interesting, cool stuff, Malice in Wonderland. Okay, this one, The Fall of the House of Usher. It's about a 15-minute short by, Jan Svankmajer, who is famous, for their stop-motion work. And I think I've seen stuff like here. They did Alice, which is a cool movie. So this short here, it's just basically kind of showing a lot of weird, stop-motion kind of elements stuff here, like tree branches growing and stuff in the old Fall of the House of Usher, of course, the Edgar Allan Poe story here. I think this one's decent. The narration's obviously not in English, but there's subtitles there. It's okay. It's interesting. A lot of hard work in stop motion. And the funny thing is, stop motion is something I love in small bits, like Basket Case, Q the Winged Serpent, or even movies like Night Before Christmas. How can you not love that? Or even Corpse Bride. I like that. And those aren't small doses. But sometimes, like a whole entire movie or short that's like, it's super innovative and stuff. Like Wolf House was another one that was really cool to watch, about for an hour, 30 minutes or something, and I get bored. I think The Fall of the House of Usher is really cool, and I got a lot of props for it, but I don't really love it. It's not something that I would revisit very much. I know that's kind of probably sacrilege considering how good these guys, this person is known for their stop motion, but it's just not for me. Not this one, at least. Next up is The Pledge, which is an interesting period piece kind of deal here where this person is put to death for a crime they committed, and his body is hung out in front of the village, and it's just a really well shot and kind of well done. It really captures the time and the kind of look of everything like this, and essentially what we have here is just some criminals that decide to bury their dead friend, even though they're horrible people. They managed to do one good deed, but it kind of has a gothic kind of scary little feeling. Very good period piece captured, and that's pretty much all there is. It's very short. Memories of the Seaside. This is a Japanese short that shows somebody, I think for real, mutilating their hand, and then it cuts back to a really grainy, weird footage of somebody being murdered on a beach. Not much to it. Maybe you can find something. I can't. Dreamland Express. This is an animated short, really trippy, really weird, based off a book from 1927. And this is interesting. This is good stuff. Like I said, Malice in Wonderland, a little bit longer than that. Good stuff. Somebody posted on Letterboxd, this is what happens when you drink too much NyQuil or something like that. NyQuil Nightmare. Yeah, this one I like. It's good. I think that if you're into animation, this one's kind of a must to see for the year. It's just interesting. Good stuff. Won awards and stuff, so definitely worth your time. A little bit unnerving as well. I Blow Up. Incredibly short Super 8 movie by Mark Borchardt, who did, of course, American Movie, the guy in American Movie. And this one is just basically somebody blowing up, somebody eating or drinking something they're not supposed to and kind of melting. It's kind of an early melt movie from 1982. Yeah, I like it. I like melt movies. Why not? It's like a minute. It's like 2 minutes. What do you want? Next up is Rusty House, and this was based off kind of a paper animation made into an animated thing here. It's like 2 minutes long. It's awesome. It's Japanese, and this was on the Oshanko's Horror Theater, which they had like a release of from last year, I think, that I watched. I don't know if all those were from 81 or not, but it's a bunch of shorts, and I don't think this one was in there, so this is 82. Essentially, this kind of girl goes into this kind of haunted house, and there's like this evil cat that kind of fucks with her, and the ending's great. And it's just basically 2 minutes. If I say anything else, it'll spoil it. Cool animation, cool ways they transition scenes with flying moss and things like that. And it's great. It's one of the better ones I saw. Next one is Santakis, or Santakis. I think it's from South America, and this is by a guy named Soja, who produced tons of movies later on. He directed, he wrote, he worked a lot with Peter Basdorf, and they wrote a book together. So this guy is definitely kind of interesting to put here, that he has this kind of 16 millimeter 7-minute short about this like kind of satanic murders that are kind of resurrecting something. Pretty weird. It would definitely be awesome to put it in like somebody like in a lost found footage movie inside of a movie. And there's a feature length version that's made in 1997. But yeah, this definitely shows, I guess, how short it is and how weird it is. it to a certain extent shows promise, and this guy definitely went on to be involved with lots of South American movies. Now, where was Peter Bosdorf done from? I can't think if I'm saying his name right, but he also did like Zombie-O, that director, but not this guy, but he works often with him, so yeah. All right, so the Patreon pick here. Yeah, it's finally The Godfather. I think it was David Luton, I believe, has been requesting The Godfather forever. It finally got drawn out of the bag. So here we go. That's right, The Godfather. We're watching the original from 1972, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And I had seen this one before, although here's a shocker here. I've never seen part 2 or 3, but I've seen part 1 more than once. And I love it. I think it's a great movie. It is pretty much one of the quintessential, if not the quintessential mafia movie, based on a book, of course, by, Mario Puzo. But Francis Ford Coppola was a young director at the time. And I always talk about this first pops up in the commentary. Listening to the commentary, he talks about how many struggles he had with the studio and how he had to outsmart them and how he had to do certain things to maneuver around it and how he had to fight for certain things. And you could see how hard it is for even the best filmmakers to make a movie when they're young, or even anybody at that point. So you got to be highly intelligent. You got to almost play the game, which is it's just kind of crazy. So essentially what we have here is Don Corleone, played by Marlon Brando. Wonderful role here. Much younger than he's actually supposed to be in the movie. I mean, he's much younger in real life than he's playing the character. He's kind of the Don of this family here, Corleone. He has, 3 or 4 kids. He has, of course, Al Pacino as one of his kids, Michael, who's a military guy, not really involved with the family crime life. James Caan, who's Sonny, of course, the kind of hothead son. He has Talia Shire as the daughter, and then he has John Cassell, who is Fredo, who's kind of the younger, kind of fuck-up, kind of meekish kind of character here. And in the opening, it opens up with this brilliant wedding, and Coppola talks about how it opens up, how he wanted that was the most interesting aspect of that part of the book, the great way to open it, right? That the idea that the Godfather on his daughter's wedding has to essentially grant any wish. So all these people are coming in and he's doing all this business and stuff. And Robert Duvall is kind of the adopted son, Tom Hagen as kind of like the lawyer or whatever. He works as his private attorney, kind of an adopted son character. So I mean, the cast alone, you're like, geez, that's so many great actors in that just right off the bat, all recognizable, known, great people. So essentially, he has to grant this guy, his request, and it's just such a brilliant way to do it. And he seems like it's something about the mafia, and I'm going to say this: people are infatuated with the mafia in America, especially because it's like an organized crime deal, right? They just kind of like they romanticize the mob, they romanticize certain periods of crime and certain types of crime, like vigilantism often gets romanticized and stuff like during the Great Depression or the Dust Bowl eras and stuff. People romanticize that. In Old West, they romanticize Billy the Kid and Wyatt Earp and all these people. No matter if they're good or bad, it's just that Dillinger's another guy, so it's romanticized. And I think the mafia kind of life is also romanticized and stuff into that angle. It's intriguing, it's different, and it's such a cool, unique time in history and everything like that. This is the 40s, right after World War II kind of died down, so Michael's coming home and he comes to the wedding, and as it progresses, we learn, Diane Keaton's also in here as, Michael Corleone's kind of possible wife or fiance. And what happens is there's a group of mobsters, a young guy, and Silencio, played by Al Lettieri, who I forgot was in this movie. And Al Lettieri is an excellent actor who pops up in stuff like Mr. Majestic and The Getaway by Sam Peckinpah. He's also in the weird movie Pulp. Al Lettieri was an amazing actor, one of a couple in this movie who died incredibly young, who shouldn't have died. Al Lettieri in here is fucking fantastic as Silencio, very intimidating, great look, speaks Italian in here too. But he's one of 2 actors, I'd say, that died incredibly young here that should have had longer and more prolific careers, as well as John Cassell, right? So he's in this, and he's a guy who wants to get into drugs, and Don Corleone really doesn't want to do it. So they kind of learn through the idea that maybe the younger kind of mob guys would be interested if Don Corleone was out of the way. So they put a hit on him, and there's a lot of characters within the background that are there obviously a lot of politics going through here and stuff like that. But Michael basically has to step up and get involved with the family business and end up killing some people and kind of move into that spot of Godfather. That's kind of what the movie's about. Also want to mention that Abe Vigoda's great in here. There's tons of other people. I should be punished if I don't mention Sterling Hayden as McCloskey, the police officer. So this is a movie that I have not watched since I was 18 years old. And I remembered so much of it because it's such a memorable movie, from the score to everything. And often when you watch lots of movies, I love movies. There's certain movies that captivate you. This one does. And I know it's considered the best movie ever for a damn good reason. You put it in, I was incredibly captivated with it, and it had been years. And it's a 3-hour movie. This is like the 3-hour movies you're scared to watch. Back in the day, I know this is probably a generalization and it's not true, but when you put it in a 3-hour movie, you expect to get something fucking like Godfather. Now you put it in a 3-hour movie and you get goddamn Transformers 3 and you're like, I want to shoot myself. What the fuck is this crap? That's the problem. I remember, and that's why people get so mad at 3-hour movies, because they used to get stuff like The Godfather or Apocalypse Now, or even when it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes, you get Dawn of the Dead. Now you're just getting shit that's drug out. Like, as much as Wedding Crashers is a fun movie, why the fuck is this 2 hours and 10 minutes? It's just the problem with it is now everything is made to a certain length. Like, that's why you would, when you grew up, like, younger in the video, I mean, like, I'm older, but this movie I didn't grow up with. Like, it wasn't, like, it was before my time, but it was in a video store. So anytime you rented a classic that had the 2 tapes, you knew you were getting something fucking good. And that's old man get off my lawn shit there, but it's just, again, incredibly captivating here. And it does play almost kind of like vignettes in here, right? We have the Solonzo story, right? We have the Mo Green kind of aspect here by Alex Rocco's in that as well, towards the end with the Vegas stuff. And we even have John Marley in the beginning here. John Marley's another great actor, pops up in Death Dream. So we have all these kind of little stories and how they unfold and people taking care of them and stuff. The acting's phenomenal. The characters are incredibly well written. All the side characters, Luca Brasi is great. I love how he moves and the stories that Coppola told about him not being very intimidated by Brando. Brando's great in this. And we know Brando has a horrible history of fucking movies up or being incredibly difficult, but man, this is worth it. He's great in here. He's got the whispering voice. He's always like an impression that people do. It's long lasting and it's unforgettable. Pacino's great in here too. Pacino was young at the time when he made this. He was more of like a theater kind of guy, right? So, but he's intense in this, and he's just well-rounded, kind of good performance. The violence is pretty nasty, right? I mean, when people get shot in the head, it's shocking. It's well done. I also have to mention that my boy Joe Smell is in here as a tiny role. We also got Richard Bright as a tiny role. Just a slew of excellent actors that pop up in tiny little cameos or roles. Not cameos, they're not cameos, but they're roles in here that I like. What can I say about it? It's just everything in here. And Coppola is pretty open about where he lifted stuff. He mentions taking Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde when Sonny gets killed. He's like, I was inspired by Bonnie and Clyde. I do notice this movie is made on a budget, which, you don't really think because it's one of the most popular movies of all time. But the only time I ever notice it is when we have a wide shot and you're seeing, or you have a close-up and you see Sonny or something get shot 37 fucking times on the ground, and then we go to the wide. And he doesn't have the same bullet holes. And that's just nitpicking. Doesn't bother me. I don't take off points for that kind of stuff. Who gives a shit? The movie's so... Like I said, I'm so invested. If that's losing me points, if I'm getting so mad at the movie for that, then they've already lost me. And that's the same thing I say about CGI. Like, sometimes it's best to hide or work with practical effects where you don't even notice it. But if there's one scene of bad CGI and it ruins the movie for me, then the movie already lost. It already lost to me. But what can I say about this movie? I'm not going to watch the special features on the third disc till I watch all of them, of course, and I'm going to watch all of them. I know that 2's in the bag, and if I draw out 1 again, I'll just watch 3, or every time I draw a Godfather, I'll watch them until they're done. But, yeah, I only have the DVD set. I know that the third one was released in the kind of reconstructed version. I know there's a long version of where it's all 3 of the movies, kind of, or maybe it's just 1 and 2 put together that used to play on TV all the fucking time. I think it's 1 and 2. And, yeah, so, I mean, I love watching the first one. It was fantastic. One of the best movies ever made. What can I say? And, I love my mom movies. Of course, I love Martin Scorsese's movies too. Of course, Goodfellas, Casino, all that stuff. But yeah, Godfather is kind of hard to beat. What's weird is like, I probably like Goodfellas better. Maybe not. But if somebody was like, what's a better movie? I think The Godfather's a better movie. I know that's weird to say, but it just is. It's just this certain style and this. Another thing I want to talk about how it looks is this movie is so pleasant to look at. When I think 70s, if I had to capture, I know the movie takes place in the 40s, but if I had to capture the look of the 70s, like how does 70s look? What color scheme is it to you? And I don't know why, but I think Godfather. The way the lighting is, the way it is, all that kind of stuff like that. But excellent movie, classic, Patreon pick, of course. But yeah, what else can I say about one of the greatest movies ever made? All right, here we go. Super Saiyan Death Metal God, your collection is life goals, Mr. Parker. I only hope one day I can afford a collection this badass. I mean, it's just something like buying a bunch of movies and getting stuff to review. It's not really like, I don't know, do you get proud? Are you proud of something? Like, you're happy with it. You like, I don't know. I think life goals or stuff. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I get it, though. I understand, because, I mean, I'm doing it. It's like, but... Tim Hayes, great review of 1990 Bronx Warriors. I still have the old Media Blasters DVD or that one along with the new Barbarians. I will have to upgrade them soon. I did get the Blu-ray DVD combo pack of Escape from the Bronx shown on MS Theater 3K as Escape 2000. I believe Escape from the Bronx is a sequel to 1990 Bronx Warriors. Escape 2000 was actually Turkey Shoot. Did they have two names? Was Escape 2000 two different movies? I watched the trailers for all three movies, and I thought 1990 Bronx Warriors had characters that looked like one of the gangs from the Warriors, of course. David Becker, Dark Echoes was an Australian Slovenian film shot in 1977, released in 1986 on the VHS and some foreign markets. Video search in Miami is the only reason anyone ever saw it over here. It's worth a watch. Yeah, I saw that information as well, but like on the commentary, they mentioned that it was actually shot in 82, made in 82, and it's hard to find any more information except that little bit of information that you said there, and I found that, but I couldn't find anything else. Stephen Cowie, I was mentioned on the internet. Look forward to the roll-on reviews. Kudos as always. Thank you. Mr. Mansion, your editing really is awesome on these videos. Great reviews. Thanks, man. Thank you. Hank Curtin, I really enjoy your reviews. I think the creepy clown thing is a somewhat recent phenomenon. Baby boomer clowns like Bozo and Clarabelle, Howdy Doody, were beloved by kids at the time. And I grew up with King Moody, Teenagers from Outer Space, as Ronald McDonald, and he was generally perceived as friendly and fun. Moody played the fast food clown from 69 to 85. Now, of course, clowns have been completely demonized. Of course, I think it's John Wayne Gacy in it. I really do. And then it only gets more and more characters, of course, later on. Way Up Dude gives me a thumbs up. Thank you. Martin Van P also gives me a thumbs up. Thank you. Nick Moore from Belgium. I would recommend Final Destination 5. It's worthy entry in the series. They had the good sense of bringing Tony Todd back. May he rest in peace. I'll hold off on watching the latest entry till Halloween. I think when the barrier betwixt life and death is at its thinnest. Indeed. The Terror in the Fog series looks like a very interesting Also, it doesn't surprise me Mr. Kim Newman is doing commentaries for them. He is also gushing about Creamies on other tracks, so I just acquired the set while supplies last. Would you consider the slasher American equivalent to the Italian giallo and the German krimi? I wouldn't really. I would say it's a kind of trajectory, right? We have krimi, giallo being made around the same time, and then of course the slasher, which takes elements from all of it, which take elements from mystery books. So it's just a trajectory of the way films are made and what's popular and how it all mixes together until it forms a genre where people start ripping off the genre, making a bunch, whatever. So it's just like that. I wouldn't say that it's the equivalent. I would say that it's similar and took inspiration from, but it's more of a evolution of it into a different way. Why do you think audio commentators always pair up the same people for the track? I'd love to hear a Kat Ellinger plus Troy Howarth track, or Kim Newman and Amanda Reyes. These people are friends with the people. That's why. They don't really pair them up. They don't choose really typically who to pair up. It's kind of, I'm solo, or this is my kind of commentary partner. That's why you see like Nathaniel Thompson, Troy Howarth, and Nicolani all together all the time, because they're friends. They have rapport. While a lot of these people, they may not like each other, they may not have chemistry, they may not even know each other. So to randomly have the company say, we want you and you on this commentary is unlikely. They may be like, will you do a commentary, and then ask that person to do a separate commentary. They might run it by them, and this person says, I don't know that person, I'm not comfortable doing that. So it's not necessarily the company's picking. It's who they get, who's that person's partner would be. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense at all. And it's kind of like the indie film world, where everybody thinks that everybody's best friends, right? Oh, they all know each other. Not everybody's best friends. Not everybody likes each other. Maybe some people don't want to work together. Maybe they don't know each other. It's not everybody probably knows of each other, or some to a certain extent. A lot of people are working on their own operation. They don't really know people. They don't cross paths with people and stuff like that. There's just people that have the people they work with, and they kind of steer clear. They stay in their lane, or they stay with the people they know. I don't want to say lane. That's different. Does a horror movie always need a tagline? I don't know. I'm sure there's some out there that don't. I don't think anything needs a tagline, but sometimes they're incredibly memorable. I'm not sure they need taglines at all now with the streaming services, but I think back in the day on the VHSs and the trailers and the posters, I think they did. See you week 421, God willing. Take care. Thank you. The Return of Nilbog. Congrats on week 420. Thank you. Return of Nilbog. Let's see it. Let's see that movie. Go back and see all them, trolls or goblins. Fascinating. Thank you. That's J35H. Beyond Sour Ground. Happy 420. What are some of your favorite stoner psychedelic drug movies, both comedy films or more genre cult fanfare? We were talking comedy movies. Half Baked always got me. I always enjoyed that one. Big Lebowski. Those are some common answers. But let me think some trippy, weird movies. The Hallucination Generation is a weird one. That kind of has a character who's constantly always high in it. That's a 70s exploitation movie. Was that a William Griffey? It's not a great, amazing movie, but maybe it's interesting to see kind of hippies on the craziness. I Drink Your Blood also has crazy hippies. I don't know why I'm going to crazy hippies right now, but we think psychedelic movies that I think are fun to trip though. I think movies that give you a bad trip is Jacob's Ladder. Watching that would give you an unpleasant trip. But Pink Floyd The Wall is a good one to watch, I think. I think that one's fun. I'm trying to think of other ones. I think honestly it depends what kind of thing you do when you want to watch something psychedelic or trippy or get in a certain mindset. Cemetery Man is a good one. I'd go with that one for sure. But sometimes just watching something incredibly stupid or goofy like The Three Stooges is perfect for that kind of deal, right? Just goofy stuff or a lot of physical gag comedy that never stops, like an Ernest Scared Stupid I think might be good for that. But it depends all what you're into. When you're talking trippy, I'm trying to think if you're high will be a fun movie, but if you're talking trippy, what's a trippy movie? Ooh, boy, trippy. It's funny, you got a million trippy movies, and the Pink Floyd The Wall has some trippy moments, but try to think ones that's like the most trippy movies I can think of. I can't think of many off the top of my head. I like doing these off the top of my head, so hope I gave you a couple recommendations. Ken Coakley, I'm a huge fan of the Bronx Warriors 1990. Played at a theater that I would later work at. I saw Revenge of the Dead, City of the Walking Dead, that's Nightmare City for you guys, and a midnight showing of Day of the Dead there. They also showed Night of the Zombies, the good one. The Evil Dead in 82, Armed Response, among others. I had to wait to see Bronx Warriors on videocassette in 83 or 84. I love the fact that the badass with long hair was in the movie. At the time, Conan the Barbarian was around, and that was it. I love the beginning when Trash saves Stephanie Gerlami from the other gang. I like the fact he made the face he made when he fought. I started making the same face whenever I fought. I was stunned to learn of Marco de Graggio's death. I was following the hunt to find him. I was hoping to meet him at a show. I did meet Pharrell Williamson in 2010 at a show. We talked about the Bronx Warriors and his working relationship with Mark Gregory. He referred to Gregory as a good kid, but too young to have his own movie with no experience. He also said the Hells Angels, who were extras, taunted Gregory behind his back because of the way he walked. Williams was great as Ogre. He had an otherworldly look about him. When he sat in his throne after being shot and smoking a cigar while being consumed by the flames made him look like a king going down with his kingdom. His missionary in the beginning was hilarious. Ogre's mighty piff instead of pissed. John Laredo, billed as Jonathan Sinclair, was funny with his quote about the blood flowing to Trash's head falling to the smaller head. Laredo directed Patrick Swayze's last film. He was also great in Great White as the corrupt mayor. He also was in Glorious Bastards. His character called Freddie Williamson's character the Dreadful N-Word. It was also kind of ironic because he was a recipient of the Nelson Mandela Freedom Award for practicing medicine pro bono in Zulu nations. That kind of stuff impresses me. I have a huge crush on the Brazilian nurse who lived near the Amazon and helped people there. She's smart, beautiful, funny, and now I find out that she's compassionate. Back to the movie, I thought the gang that looked like cast members from The Chorus Line were pretty hilarious. George Eastman was barely recognizable with the long hair wig he was wearing. Yeah, he was ridiculous in that. And then we have this comment, Smells of Death. What AI program do you use for subtitling? I use Subtitle Edit and I use Whisper, and then there's little kind of like engines within that I use. So hope that helps. And okay, that's it. That's the questions, and I'm going to do my Patreon drawing here. Now, I didn't throw everyone's name in from the last one just yet. I still got to do that, but we're going to take out 5 names here, so they'll go in for the next drawing. I know everybody's mad, but I'm being honest. I told you guys what's coming in here. I didn't get a chance to print all those names out. I forgot. So what do we got here? We got Travis Linscomb, No Resistance, Saturn's Core. Then we have Nick Moore, any film of Greg Ararki's Teen Apocalypse trilogy you haven't seen or covered. I think I did this one already, but since I drew it out, we're going to do it again, and I just covered Totally Fucked Up. Man, I think I covered Doom Generation. We'll see. Maybe I didn't cover Nowhere on here, which I love, so no problem with that. Lifeguard, Jim Simon. And then we got 2 more. Chris Rivers, Crybaby. Okay. And last, but certainly not least here, we're going to have The Flesh and the Fiends, Nick Moore. Nick Moore got 2 here. That's a 1960 movie. Yeah, that's right, with Peter Cushing and Donald Pleasance. So, yeah, look forward to that. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.